Hello, Mike. Wow, Mike
You
freezing.
froze.
Oh, wait, no,
You are
you froze.
frozen. I cannot see you. I've lost you. I'm alone. You froze.
Am I still frozen? Am I good?
Yeah, no, you're back now.
Okay, we'll let the commenters and the listeners and the viewers
Who froze?
decide who froze.
Who froze?
Hashtag who froze. I'm Nick Schwert. He's Mike Vernon. This is Could Be Wrong, and this is going to be, I believe, our final episode of 2024. What a year it's been.
It was kind of stinky. That's my take. We'll get into that. Uh, but
Yes.
but it was about the friends we made along the way. I actually have a question for you, and this comes from a viewer who's making their first trip to Lawrence for a game here soon, and never been to Allen Fieldhouse, never been to Lawrence. Significant other surprised them with tickets. It's awesome. They're flying in. This, I think you're the perfect person to answer this question. Here's his bar and restaurant plan for game day, and I want you to tell me if this is right. Uh, I believe we got a wheel hangout before the game, then go to the game, hang around the field house, check it out. He said. After that, go to the triangle bars. Hang around those triangle bars. That'll be a fun experience, and I think surprising based on that. Um, and then at night, we're going to Free State Brewery for dinner. I'm trying to find one other place that we can go to in between from the end of the game and the brewery. So from like 6 to 8 p.m., where should he go from in between the Triangle Bars in Lawrence, the Bullhawk Wheel, and Free State Brewery? By the way, the plan sounds pretty solid to me.
Okay, how old is this fella?
I don't know. He's a youthful man.
A youthful man. Okay.
Uh,
I mean, it
I don't
depends
know,
what
like
kind of vibe you're
maybe
going for.
early 20s. I think he's
At this,
listening. I don't want to out him.
at this point, you've probably got a nice buzz going. So
I would hope so.
maybe you want to chill out a little bit before dinner. Um, I would say go somewhere down on Mass Street. Hit a little hidden gem on Mass Street. The Red
What's the hidden
Lion.
gem? The person's never been. Right. It's
Red
got to be a
Lion would
bop
be
around
good.
Mass Street. Bop around
Yeah.
Mass. Red Line came to mind. I didn't know if you were going to say like, okay, the person has commented they are 27.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, somebody recommended Johnny's Tavern. That's you got to go over the bridge. I guess it's not that big of a deal. And if you're going to Free State anyway, Johnny's would be a good spot. Johnny's would be a good
Johnny's
spot, but be
Johnny's is
careful.
great.
Be
There's
careful
food.
because you may stay because you may
Yeah,
not want to leave.
yeah, exactly. Red Lion's pretty good. You'll get some popcorn to sober up. What do you think about like could hit sandbar in those hours after a game? There could be like mild juice, or it'll
Yeah.
be, or it'll be dead. I'm not sure.
No, I say go for it because that may unless you're going to do that as a post dinner thing, at which point it will definitely be juiced.
Well, after dinner, sandbars on the table. Red Lion is a good one. I didn't know if you're gonna be like hipster because you're so hipster and say bourgeois pig.
Never been.
Um,
Never been.
you never just sat outside and had a drink there.
No, and I lived in Lawrence for like a decade and never went.
I mean, it's just that it's there. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Um, there's like John Brown's Underground that opened after I left.
That's
Uh,
a good
we,
spot. That's a good.
we
That's a good
appreciate
pre-dinner
you, John.
spot. But
Yeah,
you're talking about some places that are tough to get into. You know, Sandbar, John Brown. You're just gonna have to take your shot because, and same thing with Free State, because Free State you can't even make reservations. So but that's the whole point. Is these are exclusive establishments in Lawrence, Kansas. So
we
you'll
can have
you'll
like
get into one
merchants
of
too.
them. Yeah.
Karaoke at
Um.
Johnny's Jazz House. All right, we're done. We're just gonna
All
name
right.
every bar in Lawrence if we
Good
keep
luck
going.
to
Report
Joe
back.
on
Report
your
back.
first
I want to
Lawrence
hear
trip.
what you think about the triangle bars. You may never make it out.
Okay, I want to get into some stuff. KU beats North Carolina State. They snap their 2 game losing streak. And they did it in pretty convincing fashion. That was fun to watch, not because it was the best KU's played all year or that North Carolina State is some sort of statement opponent, but because they did some stuff that we haven't seen before. I know what you want to get into, but before we go down that road, I know we're not going to be able to come back. Zeke Mayo, 26 points, his best game in a Kansas uniform. And I think I texted you during the game. I was like, he's making this look easy. He was not laboring to have his best game as a Jayhawk.
Interesting. Interesting.
You disagree?
No, I agree, and I think there might be more to it.
Okay. Well, I came away from that game simply thinking that we have to stop, or at least maybe it's a message to myself. I have to stop lumping all these transfers in together because
Yeah.
there's been this trend, and I fall victim to it of like, how are the transfers doing? How are they fitting in? Okay, Bill Self, how does he do with transfers? Is there an issue here with the transfer portal era? We can lump AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin together if we want to. Zeke Mayo, he's not a guy I'm particularly concerned about the rest of the season because unlike those other guys, he's playing. He's playing 30 minutes a night. He is allowed to play through his struggles, and he has contributed since day one. Like, that's a guy I'm ready to just set aside and say, okay, not worried about you. You're going to be a dude. You're going to be a difference maker for this team. You're not going to play like that every single night. But I feel like that was, or I hope that that was a sign of him
You're
getting
such a
more
Zeke
comfortable.
Mayo fan.
Well, dude, you saw it. You saw it, right? Would you argue that he has not been KU's best addition in 2024? Right? Is there even a other argument to be made? Are you really going to go the
No,
Diggy Coit route?
Crazy to think that he actually might be second, Diggy Coit. But no, he's been their best addition. I would agree. He's had some highs and lows as they all have, but he has been their biggest like difference maker between this year and last. Like when he can go, it's a different team.
Yeah, and I think
The other two aren't even close.
no,
Yeah.
and I wonder like the reason for that. And part of me says maybe this guy is able to just seamlessly bring his game and fit it into what KU wants to do without having to change a ton. But that game against NC State was different in that Zeke at South Dakota State was the point guard, he was the ball handler, he was the initiator. He comes to Kansas, now you're playing alongside DeJuan Harris. And for the first month of the year, DeJuan was doing what DeJuan has always done, and Zeke was sort of playing this off-ball role. Nothing's really going to change. Like, DeJuan's always going to be the point guard, the initiator. But we saw, and shout out Derek Johnson for kind of making me think about this earlier in the week, but like they went to this 2 ball game where
You have
Zeke was
Derek-
allowed Zeke
Finish
was
your
allowed to initiate offense. They play this 2-man game with him and Hunter, and it wasn't mutually exclusive. It wasn't like Zeke handles the ball, so DeJuan's taking a night off. Zeke played great, DeJuan played great, and that has me excited for, okay, we can still have all these questions about this team, but at the very least, I feel very good about this backcourt moving forward.
First of all, like Derek Johnson is really good. That's a takeaway. Can we get it? Would he ever come on this pod? I don't know what his
Probably.
as long as he's not like had KU probably wouldn't be kosher with that. But I would love to have him on. I think you like him better than me, and I do take that personally, and I'm not okay with it. But that's not for here and now. Not for here and now. Because you needed Derek Johnson to say like, oh, they're running a 2-man game. First of all, Derek makes great points, but like
No, it was a conversation with him that made me start thinking about
without me,
like, what this backcourt's potential is.
okay, you know what happened when KU was running the 2-man game? You know what else was happening at that moment in time?
See, I knew I had to get the Zeke stuff out because I knew you were going to get to this eventually, and we're going to get sucked into this hole. But let's do it.
Okay, it is when KJ Adams got in foul trouble. KU spaced the floor. I don't even care if KJ's the 5. It's not about KJ. It is about playing with space. And that is when KU, I've got a supercut of it. I'll text it to you after and I'll post it this week. I'm still like editing it. I've got every bucket, every possession, make or miss from that window of time without him. And my God, KU got some easy looks and good looks. If they didn't turn it over, it was a good look. Like, so the two-man game of Zeke and Hunter was great. It makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, but like it's not mutually exclusive though. Like it's not as though when you let Zeke kind of be the guy he was at South Dakota State that Dewan now has a reduced role. Dewan was great versus NC State. That was one of his best games. I think he hit 3 threes in that game. So that's what I want to see because not only are you letting one of your best players in Zeke start playing towards his strength, where he's not just a spot up shooter. He can now handle the ball, get to his spot, and score. But you're taking so much pressure off Dewan for not having to be the dude running the show for 40 minutes a night, which is what he's basically been the last 3 years.
The less Dewan shoot, like when Dewan gets into the 10 shot volume range and up, that typically means it's an L for KU, right? That's just like not him at his best. So I agree that with space, KU, like their guards were better and their bigs were better. Um, it's so obvious, and I don't think the defense wasn't great, but it wasn't that much worse. And Hunter was playing with 3 fouls at the time, so there were a couple that like he didn't really contest there. Um, so like it is going to maximize like this team. I think if they can find a way to make their coach happy enough to let them do this. I don't think they're there yet. It's only December. Obviously, we have talked about this. Um, but like God, it was refreshing to see. That's when KU ran them out the gym when they were able to go with 4 guards. Um, one other like quick take before, well, we're gonna get into like the 4 guard thing. I just want to say like I don't know where you stand on this, but like Hunter Dickinson, people give him a lot of shit, but that dude has been like eating this year. And last year he was the only dude who could do anything, and he's frustrating to watch. And I get it. There's flagrant fouls and stuff, but like, what more do you want from the guy? Like production wise, there's not much more he can do. And defensively, he's actually been a lot better.
Before the second half, that run that you were talking about, I was scrolling Twitter during the game, and I saw like more than a few people on Twitter like basically saying they're tired of Hunter Dickinson. And I remember it from last year, like you remember it from the end of the year, and it makes me wonder if we've just run out of things to say about Kansas basketball. Like Hunter hasn't even been here for a year and a half. He has been a top 10 player in the country since he stepped foot on campus. And there have been any number of problems that you could bring up with Kansas basketball. How are you landing on that guy? He's the issue.
He is not the problem. He is not the problem.
These are fake. These are fake. These are bots. These are bots.
I'm in multiple group texts where this gets brought up. I got attacked by a friend who has notorious for having bad takes, so that's fine. This friend, and he knows it. It's okay. He shoots a lot. He's a volume shooter. That was like, you just defend him because he came on your Discord. Like, have I ever done like that? Is not how this works. That is not how this works. I defend him because the dude almost had a triple double. He's ranked number 4 in Kim Palm's like MVP, and he is not like he's playing with 2 other dudes that don't give him space, and that's Dewan and KJ too. And like they just play so much together. So, I mean, that's it. That's my reign on that. I know we want to talk about I want to talk about what Bill said about
Okay.
the forward guard lineup. Will you give some context on this because it was surprising. I went through some stages of anger, denial, but I've landed on what I think is happening. We'll get
Okay.
to that after.
So I have the video, and we'll play the video. But the context is KU beats North Carolina State. They go 4 guards in the second half. It looked really good. The offense had spacing, shooting. Hunter just feasted down low because he wasn't getting double teamed. After the game, press conference, somebody asks Bill what he thought of the 4 guard lineup. Here's the video and the audio for anybody who's just listening.
In the second half, you put AJ into the 4. What'd you think about that lineup with
Not any
AJ?
good. I didn't think it was any good at all. But it wasn't any good. Wasn't not any good because of personnel. It was that they were playing 2 bigs, and AJ's not and hadn't practiced doing that much. So I thought they did a good job of playing to our personnel. But I didn't think it was very good, to be honest with you.
Okay, so Bill Self says not very good, while every KU fan is saying that was great. Let's see more of that. So you said you've landed on something. Where have you landed on why Bill Self said that and what he meant by it? Mike, you muted.
And I apologize for that. I apologize for that mute. If you go back and play it, like the speed as to which Bill said not good, not good. And then he kind of was like, oh, it's not because of the personnel. No, his real Bill Self was those first 2 sentences, and they were the same sentence, not any good. Not good. And I was like, am I being gaslit? Are we being trolled? Like, what do we not see? I looked up numbers. I can pull them up of like what the results of those possessions were. But I think that entire take from Bill was because of the framing of this question, which was about AJ Storr at the 4. If you just said, what about the stretch with 4 guards? I think his answer might be different. Bill was responding to AJ Storr. I think that there's still a buy-in issue with AJ Storr. He's not playing the way Bill would like him to be playing. He's shown it in some stretches in games. I think behind the scenes, it's been more of the same. More like you don't want to guard in practice. So I think that whole response, in a lot of what we're seeing with the lineup, like KJ played 19 minutes in the first half. Ooh, what the 20, by the way, of 20. It's AJ Storr, and I think this fight that I see happening, tension, like it's not unusual. These things happen over the course of a season, but I do think it kind of fucks with some of the other players, like Rylan Griffin gets caught up in it, like Flory, even KJ. Like KJ's in a bad spot. Zeke had a couple bad games where like they're not playing to an optimal lineup because I think the coach is still trying to prove a point or work things out with a really high ceiling player that is AJ Storr, but it's not there yet. That is my theory on this, is that all of that was about AJ Storr and that the minutes in the lineup are about AJ Storr. Maybe Rylan a little bit too, but I think it's mostly AJ Storr. What do you think?
Rylan played like 30 plus minutes and had 2 points in that game. So, Rylan is getting run. I would agree.
He hadn't been, and I actually think Rylan played pretty well. He just didn't make a few and had a couple turnovers, but like I liked what I saw.
Yeah,
you would agree.
And this is the right out of the Bill Self mid-December playbook, and the fans are doing their part. Like the fans are playing their role as well. This happens every year. Hey, why isn't this guy playing more? Why isn't Bill playing this guy more? Bill sort of maybe kind of calls him out, maybe doesn't. Now there's whispers that they're not liking what they're seeing in practice. Here's the next page of this script, Mike. I'm going to tell you how it's going to play out because I thought we almost got it there. in that post-game presser, we're a week or two away from Bill being less vague about his frustrations with certain players. I feel like that is coming, and he may not call out AJ by name. He'll say we, right? He'll say some of our guys, but that's coming very soon where he kind of says, well, like guys need to do this, guys need to do that. We need to do this, we need to do that. And you're going to start to hear him get a little bit more open about the frustrations he has with certain guys. Because I agree with you. I think he was ready to go in at the beginning of that answer, and then he's like, not tonight. But that will
He
come.
was like, if you played it, how hard is it to play it again? Just the first not any good. Like that to me, it was
In
everything.
the second
The
half,
first,
you put AJ into the 4. What do you think about that lineup with
Not any
AJ?
good. I didn't think it was any good at all. But it wasn't.
But not for the reason you think. I think it wasn't any good.
what? This is a question about AJ, and he got like serious in his face, and he said not any good. And the Taterman, makes a good comment, totally fair. Like it probably was a bad matchup. It wasn't a great defensive lineup. But defense has not been this team's issue, and it really hasn't been over the last couple of years. Like their offensive numbers in the transfer portal era are going in the wrong direction. So I don't think it was about the matchup. And I put it together here. Like I've got KU's numbers on top, and if you're listening, I'll read it out here in a second. And NC State's, these are just shots, so there were a couple of turnovers. But KU was 7 for 10. They made what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of their last 6 shots. NC State went 6 for 14 and went 1 for their last 7. I don't think the defense was that bad. Like, KU pulled away doing this. That's a very simple way to look at basketball, but like KU pulled away, it looked better, and the play-by-play also looks better.
But you already said it. Like, I don't think he was actually giving an evaluation of what he thought. I think he was going to stop himself.
It's AJ story.
Yeah, he was not going to sit there and talk about how great this lineup was and try, like, run the risk, I think, in his eyes, of inflating somebody's ego or confidence about, like, oh, yeah, I'm doing all the right stuff now. Which we could argue about how silly that is. Like, I'm not sure these kids are going back and, like, watching Bill Self's post-game presser, but they're going to see clips, right? They're going to see clips on Twitter. Yeah, so
they're online.
Yeah, we know everybody's online in this athletic department. So, listen, I'm not convinced that they're ever going to go 4 guards as their main rotation. It might be sprinkled in here or there, but I'm at kind of the point now where AJ can play more, Rylan can play more, but this is going to be the way they're going to play. KJ is going to be their primary 4, if you will, playing next to Hunter Dickinson. That is a little bit concerning because I think there are just limitations to how good this team can be offensively. But ultimately, I do think there's a little bit of having to just trust the process and trusting Bill and just knowing that, like, this is how he's going to do it. We can say KU needs to shoot more threes. We can say KU needs to space the floor more. But you look at his track record, and with the exception of 2 years in 2017 and 2018, and that may have been more by just like what you had. You didn't have many bigs. You couldn't run 2 big lineups.
Last year.
KU doesn't shoot threes. Bill Self, Kansas teams don't shoot a ton of threes. And I think that looking back on what we talked about last week with going to the transfer portal, getting all these dudes who can shoot, why aren't you using them? Why aren't you doing what you said you were going to do? It's because that's never been what they're going to do. They want to be better at shooting threes. They don't want that to be their identity.
All right, I got a question. When you
Like,
think
it's just
he's
not gonna
recruiting, when you think he's recruiting and saying like we're going 4 round 1, we're going to change, we're going to shoot more threes. Do you think he actually believes that at that time, in that moment?
I think he's in his head. He's saying, I could see it happening. There's a possibility we could do that. I don't think there's any part of him that believes, yes, that's going to happen. We're going to play 4 round 1. Unless he's sitting there saying, in a perfect world, if AJ Storr comes in and is exactly the player I want him to be. Because I do think when you're recruiting and when you're hitting the transfer portal, there's an element of you looking at each guy and looking at their potential as opposed to what's most likely to happen. You're looking at their ceiling and saying, if this guy hits his ceiling, if that guy hits their ceiling, then sure, we could play 4 round 1. But right now, in his mind, in his eyes, AJ Storr's not playing to his ceiling. Rylan Griffin's not playing to his ceiling. Therefore,
If
we're
they
just
did
kind of seeing, we're just kind of
any
seeing a
research,
different version.
if they did any research, and I'm assuming they did, they had to know that AJ Storr was gonna this was very obvious. Like they knew that this was possible. His potential is really high. So that's what they recruited to. And I think in that moment, Bill's saying yeah, we got the guys to do this, but he's so competitive when it comes down to it. He won't get to what he wants to do if they're not doing what they must do, which is 1, guard, 2, run around a lot.
Well,
3,
listen, I think you're right. There is a competitiveness and a stubbornness that plays a factor into this, but I also think we
it
gloss
makes him
over
great.
because we gloss over the fundamental aspect of coaching that Bill Self has always had, which is I'm not going to play you unless you earn it. And when you have a guy in KJ who may not be the most talented, but he does everything you want him to do. He works his ass off. He knows his
You're
defensive
getting hot
assignment.
again. I'm getting
But
mad.
no, I'm really not. But
No,
it's
I
like
am.
just from a in between the ears. KJ's everything Bill Self wants in a basketball player. Everything he wants. And he has a soft spot for those guys because, and I think he looks at them and says, they're doing everything I ask. This guy's not. This guy practices hard. This guy doesn't. What kind of message does it send to my team
I
if
agree.
there's a dude not doing what he's supposed to do and not doing what we're asking him to do, and we say, screw it, you're better, so we'll just play you anyway?
I do agree with most of that. Where I start to get confused is the fact that up until KJ had foul trouble, if he wouldn't have had foul trouble, they would never have even tried it. That's the thing where I'm you won't even try? How are these guys going to get confidence and develop a rhythm at all? Because you won't even try it live because you must not like what you're seeing in practice. And that comes back to probably buy-in with the system with AJ Storr. Bill Self demands you run a system. It is system ball. 100%. You do not get to improvise out there much. Basketball. There's going to be some level of it. But yeah, that's the thing. And it just, I'm still it's weird to me that the unwillingness to give it a go in non-conference play a little.
But
here we go.
But Mike, he's never gonna do it unless those guys earn the right. It's not gonna happen. This is a message to everyone, anyone on Twitter, any KU fan who is sitting there watching these games saying AJ Storr needs to play more. I'm telling you right now, it will not happen until he does all the little things that this coaching staff is asking him to do. We can argue about whether that's right or wrong. That's a fact. It will not happen.
I agree. And I do think you could argue over the years, the unwillingness to develop guys early in the year has probably cost them a couple times. Look, he's great, but I still think that's the case. We just don't know. I think I agree with you. This is the reality of it. It is just, it's still odd. There are some oddities going on. May I point out another one, or do you want to continue?
No, because I want to touch on that point.
Touch me.
I have an issue with the idea, and I've had an issue for years, when people say, oh, they got to let him learn through his mistakes. They got to let him get comfortable out there. When you do that, let's just say, and it doesn't have to be AJ Store, but if there is player X who is out there and maybe he doesn't really know his defensive assignments, he's not rebounding as hard, he's not hitting the glass as hard as he should be. He doesn't know the playbook as well. He's kind of screwing up offensive sets by not rotating him, whatever the case may be. When we just say, well, you got to let him learn. He's not going to learn in practice. He's going to learn on the court. You completely remove the idea that there are 4 other guys on the court with him. So when people say you got to let him learn through it, it's almost as if you're saying, let him learn through it while he fucks up everything else for the other 4 guys on the court. This coaching staff, any coaching staff in America, is trying to get 5 guys to play together the way that they want them to. When you have one guy who's messing shit up, it doesn't help the other 4 guys on the court. So why are you punishing them so that this one guy can get better?
Hold on, I'm not advocating for AJ Store necessarily, by the way. I don't think he's been very good at all. But I would like to see, like, Ryland before that game had only crossed 20 minutes in one big game. I would like to see what Zeke looks like with more space, for example. And so, like, that one piece that is still, he's making a point out of, I actually think is screwing with the confidence of other guys too. And I know you want him to do it right. You want to get buy-in. We'll see what happens over winter break, right? This is like the magical Bill Self time. I really do love seeing what this team starts to look like sometimes when their confidence grows or Bill Self teams. But like the other piece that is weirdly gaslighting is that like KJ Adams is like a bad rebounder. They're like a bad rebounder.
6.
Bad.
I think he said a season high for Cincy State. I think he had 6 points.
Yeah, he's no longer the worst power forward defensive rebounder in the Bill Self era. He's past Svi Mikhailuk. So, like, and I actually looked at on-off splits, and, like, other teams' offensive rebounding is actually quite a bit better when he's on the court.
You know what's funny about it is...
That pisses me off.
But you know what's funny about, like, the rebounding stuff? This is the best defensive rebounding team that Bill Self. They're
because
an
of
elite.
Hunter Dickinson. That's because of Hunter, the guy everyone hates.
And when Hunter sits for 5 minutes a game, the guy coming in to replace him is also an elite defensive rebounder.
Oh, Flory? Yeah.
Yes. So you've got, no matter at all times, you have an elite rebounder at the 5 spot, which can mask a lot of your issues. Like, there have been times where KU had like 3 or 4 guys all averaging 3 or 4 rebounds a game because they didn't have an elite one. Well, now they've got 2 of them. So I'm not super concerned about KJ's rebounding rate.
I agree with that. Like, giving up offensive rebounds is actually like really not like that's bad. Just for the record, like, I was gonna.
Dude, put that. Since somebody make a graphic, like a quote card.
I was
with
gonna
Mike
like
saying
this whole
allowing offensive rebounds is actually really bad.
It's just like you're kind of excusing one for the other. I was gonna get into like shot volume, which is this thing I like look at, which is basically like if you can get more offensive rebounds, reduce turnovers, you're like way more likely to win. It's proven. It's not a groundbreaking thing. KU's really bad at it. Last year, they were like the worst top 4 seed like ever in shot volume. There's this whole like, I would have to look it up. So I was gonna get into it, and then I didn't want to, and now I am because I felt dumb for what I said. Here's another thing that's happening. This is actually could be in defense of KJ Adams. Again, I'm not gonna let you belabor me fucking up. Free throw attempts per field goals. They're 360th out of 364. They haven't been in the bonus for 3 straight games. What the fuck?
Yeah, this team does not get to the free throw line at all.
You think it's because there's no space?
It's one theory. That's one theory.
They don't really have driving guards. DeJuan doesn't seek out contact. AJ could,
but it's still.
KJ
I'll tell you.
does get fouled.
I'll tell you what, it's still shocking to me that you have a big guy who gets as many touches as Hunter Dickinson does, yet cannot get to the free throw line to save his life. Gets double teamed as much as any player in America, never gets to the free throw line. It doesn't make sense. It happened last year. It's happening again this year. I don't really understand it, but
It didn't happen like that quite at Michigan. I mean, he's skilled. So like a skilled big won't get fouled as much. And he probably is getting hammered down there. And someone was like, "Oh, it's because the refs hate him." And someone just commented this. And I actually thought about that because I was like, no, it's because of the way they play. And then I was like, you know what? He probably does get a really bad whistle. Because like
he's chirpy too, because he'll
right,
yap at him too.
right.
Okay, can we do a little? I know we're going to get into like a 2024 year in review, but before we do that, I want to do a non-con season in review, a semester in review, if you will. And I just have
in review.
I only have one question for this. KU, how many games have they played so far? They've played 10 games.
And
Would you say KU has overachieved, underachieved, or is on par with exactly what you were expecting through 10 games?
I would say on par with what I was expecting generally. The way in which it has happened lately, again, which we've kind of talked about, is weird. It's weird to see these transfer struggles continue. But I would say it's about what I expected. Like, if you would have told me KU has some great wins over Blue Bloods, lost on the road, and AJ Storr and Bill seem to be having some problems, and like there's some weird chemistry stuff with transfers, I'd be like, nailed it. Sounds right. KU basketball seasons are pretty fucking predictable, by the way.
Yeah, they are. And that's why I would say that they have overachieved. The only blemish in my eyes is the Mizzou loss. That's the only one.
Unacceptable.
Because Creighton makes sense. Like, they're a good team.
Creighton
You
made
go to
sense.
their place. They were getting healthy at the right time. It was your first road game. That's the one I'm like, okay, this shit happens every year. The Mizzou one, and maybe it just stings more because it's Mizzou, that's the only one I would ding them for. But before the season, I probably would have guessed that they would have lost one of those games against
I would have
Duke,
said Creighton was
Michigan
an L.
State,
Oh,
or North
yeah.
Carolina. I thought they would have dropped one. They didn't drop any of those. I know it doesn't look the way we want it to, but the results, like looking at just the results, I don't know how you'd argue that this hasn't been an overachievement.
But you just said one loss and then one loss at Creighton, and they have two losses. So like, you're trading a loss to a blue blood for Missouri and saying it's an upgrade?
What?
You were saying like if you would have told me before. You were saying if you would have told me before the year, like they would lose one to the Michigan State Duke Carolina group, and then one probably to Creighton on the road, like it makes sense, and they're overachieving because of that. But I'm saying you basically predicted it, except for they beat those good teams and lost to Mizzou, which means like they have the same amount of losses.
I didn't
As you
do
would
a
have
I
predicted.
didn't do a preseason win-loss prediction. I didn't go through the schedule and pick wins, and like I'm
They got
reactively.
cooked at Mizzou. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Creighton just lost by like
That one did suck.
23 to Georgetown, by the way. Georgetown's bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that brings me to our next topic.
Everyone loses. It's college
This
basketball.
this is our last show in 2024. So I want to do a very brief 2024 year in review, not just for KU basketball, but for KU football as well. You texted me this earlier. 2024 kinda sucked. It
Yeah.
was not a ton of highlights for either football or basketball. So I need to ask you now, what was the coolest thing What was the best thing that happened for KU athletics in 2024?
Do you want me to like go through my thinking or just name one and then we'll talk about it?
I'll take whatever you want to give us. So if you want to take us through the process, let's do it.
No, first let's both name one and then discuss. And I didn't have much prep time for this. And it's like I don't even know when that UConn basketball game happened, but I'm not counting it because it's the end of the year. And I just said I wouldn't do this. Beating Duke in Vegas was pretty fucking fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that on your radar?
I guess, yeah.
I have one other answer, but you go first. I have two other.
I mean, it's all retroactive stuff. It's not stuff that I thought was necessarily cool in the time. But now that I'm having to go back and pick something and realizing there's not great options to choose
I'm
from.
pissed.
Somebody in the comments, by the way, says Darren Peterson, the top 3 recruit that KU has coming in next year. Well, let's wait and see.
No, that's on my list, dude. That's on my list.
I know.
It was a stinky
But
year.
somebody just said it. But I think the coolest thing was those 3 straight wins against Iowa State, BYU, and Colorado. You beat 3 ranked teams in a row, first ever team with a losing record in college football history to do that. The only reason that's not a slam dunk pick is because they didn't make it 4 in a row, beat Baylor, and go to a bowl. So that's a cool footnote now. We'll never talk about it again.
You were so mad at the football team all year.
Yeah.
And that's your highlight? I refuse to give them that credit. And I'm sorry to the players because I don't mean that. And they fought really hard, and I actually really respected that. It was awesome.
What if I said that for me personally?
But
what if I said for
me
me personally, simply the Colorado game?
The Colorado game was fucking awesome.
I needed that in a big, big way. That saved me from being on some Colorado talking head montages on Monday.
Yeah, Colorado fans are trying to cancel or come after Nick. I will say that was as much as I've enjoyed a football win, non-bowl game. It's a regular season football win in a really long time, since the Snow Mizzou game. And I'm cool with that answer, but I just don't want. I just have a hard time being my highlight of 2024 was the most disappointing KU football season I can remember. This one game where they beat Dion. For you, that is the highlight.
That was big. That was big for me.
I think that's a good one. That was up there.
I'm trying to think of returning players. Hunter, we never really thought he was going to go pro.
Jalen coming back.
Yeah, but what did that net us? Wait, which time?
No.
Are you talking about this time?
I'm talking about this time. I like that one.
Can we talk about this because we briefly touched on it last week. That's on us. But Jalen Daniels is coming back for KU in 2025. Mike, that's a big deal. And I don't feel like it's being treated as one. I just have not, maybe for 24 hours, people were like, okay, Jalen Daniels is coming back. And I know that there were some people who didn't want to see him come back. They want to see KU pass the torch to Isaiah Marshall or whoever the hell else you think they could have got this offseason. We don't know if those guys are going to be any good. We at least know that Jalen Daniels has the ceiling of being a really good college quarterback. I'll take that for a team and a program that hasn't had a good college quarterback
100%.
in 15 years. I will take the Jalen Daniels experience for one more go-around.
100%. It is awesome that he wanted to come finish this thing. And I want to take back that Duke win. You're right. The best part of 2024 it was KU football saving their season and not having like having 3 non-embarrassing seasons in a row is actually it's a big deal for KU. Like there's a chance the wheels could have come off the program. In the way that they responded, I think actually might in retrospect be huge for KU down the road. And part of that, in building on that, is Jalen returning. And the comment from the Taterman here talks about it, which is like, it showed what kind of football program you really have here at KU. Easy to say you're good when winning, but how do you respond when losing? And like that is the sign of some good leadership. And Jalen coming back, I think, is like a punctuation of that, where he could probably go get paid maybe a little more somewhere else. I don't know, at least the same. Go back to California where he's from. Like, he had plenty of reasons. They're changing OCs again. That's probably why he stayed. Well, he had plenty of reasons, and like he announced really quick. He didn't even fuck around with it and make us wait. And like I respect it. I think that you're right. Like that is a bigger deal than we realized. And even for the transfer portal, right? KU doesn't even have to think about quarterback right now. And that budget that allocate like for money, that's going to save them recruiting time and money.
Which, by the way, for I would venture 2/3 of college football, that's all they're thinking about right now. How can we get better? How can we get better at quarterback? And I get it. You could argue KU should be trying to get better at quarterback, but for now, like until KU gets a second good quarterback in the last 20 years, until they get a second one, like I'm not going to predict it to be happening. Like people are talking about the development of Zeke Marshall or whoever else you're bringing in. Like, what if they suck? Do you want to spend 3 years developing a quarterback who sucks? You can't. It doesn't work. Like we've seen it before, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I know Jalen can be good, and now you'll get to see him with Zabrowski, the same quarterback or the same
coaches know him,
the same OC who ran the offense in the bowl game against UNLV, and the offense looked really good. I know it was Jason Bean at quarterback, but like I refuse to just throw in the towel on JD and say because this year was a disappointment that this is who he is now. Like I'm willing to reserve some optimism for what he can bring in a last go around.
For sure. Yeah, they got the lube man coming back. I also think, that decision is gonna help with like Bryce Foster, a really good offensive lineman coming back. It will help them in recruiting, and for KU to have stability, consistency, and some proven experienced talent, like that's something they have desperately missed for more than a decade, and beyond like desperately missing, like it's even more impressive in the transfer portal era. So like props to KU for making that happen. Props to Jalen for wanting to finish what he started. I don't know. Like I want to believe that that's a really like big deal and means something. And I hope it plays out that way.
Since we're on the topic, transfer portal, KU has been very active in the transfer portal for the first 2.5 weeks of the offseason. What was that? You're not loving it?
I'm just grumbling.
Okay.
No, continue. Do your lead in.
Well, I was going to kind of toss it to you because I know you're on top of this stuff, at least more than I am, in terms of what KU's strategy is, who they're going after, what some of these guys are. So I don't want to do like a full breakdown of every single player that they have secured so far, but I don't know, what's your headline?
Well, okay, actually, before I go, I will headline. I want to know like what your impression has been like a normal human being who's not checking in on this multiple times a day, every day, and trying to talk to people about what's going on. Like, what's your gut check on like? KU's signed a lot of guys, so like I'm just curious what you think.
That is my headline. KU's signed a lot of guys.
But does that like excite you, or are you like, fuck yeah, we're killing it in the portal? I don't know.
No.
Like, what is your sense?
No, it doesn't really excite me because they're all guys I've never heard of until the second I see the announcement that KU has got a commitment from them. So I don't know whether to be excited. Like I'll see one play of like a Alabama cornerback that KU got. He's like, oh, he had this one sick play. I'm like, okay, or this Oklahoma cornerback, whatever. Like, hey,
Both.
yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that information. This feels like recruiting on steroids. Usually it's like, hey, there's this 3-star offensive tackle from Dubuque. He's got Power 5 size. I'm like, okay,
I cannot.
hopefully he'll be good.
Nothing drives me crazier than like, KU got these recruiting sites that are like have to have assistant coaches like happy, and they're like, KU got this guy. It's a really big signing. They're killing it. They're doing great. And then I'll go look, and it's like his other offers were Northern Illinois and no one else. Like, how many? Not even in the portal, just generally in recruiting, when it's like we had a decade of being told KU recruiting was good when they weren't landing like anyone with other Power 5 offers.
That's
It
why this
drives
doesn't
me
do much.
crazy.
Yeah, that's
KU
why
will get
I'm not.
some. Yeah.
But like I'll see people on Twitter who are saying like, "Oh, KU's killing it in the portal. Wow,
No.
that's not happening." You're here to report they're not killing it. That's your headline. KU not killing it.
I'm
in the
here to
portal.
report they've salvaged it. They're doing okay, and they still have a chance to, I think, have a good portal run. But they've missed on some guys too, and so like I'm not going to get excited over some dude who played one snap or like like at a school. They do think sorry, they've done a good job, I think, identifying some young offensive line talent. That's been really good. The staff has been really good over the years at O-line. They're getting some guys in with size who have some experience in time to develop behind who they have right now. So, like, really optimistic about some of their line transfer portal recruiting. They've gotten a couple guys on defense that seem good. There are two big gaps coming into the year, though, for KU that matter a lot. It's like linebacker, defensive front, and then the biggest one is wide receiver. And like nothing KU's done has made me be like, oh, if they fixed their area with the most available playing time, or like where they needed people. Linebacker, like, could be all right. They've gotten some good dudes in the secondary, but mostly wide receiver. And this is a staff that has recruited receiver horrendously since they've been here. They have not brought in one receiver that was like at least high school talent. Sorry, I want to start there. They've missed really bad on high school talent. There should be someone behind these guys that have left. Quentin Skinner, who was a walk-on when he came to KU, like he never got beat. And so now I'm looking at KU recruiting receivers in the transfer portal, and shout out to Connor from the Discord, social media sicko. He is keeping track of every KU offer and every visit and keeping things up to date. And I blew this up a little bit to make it a little easier to read for the pod. Here's the KU scholarship offers that we know of at wide receiver. You tell me how you think it's going. Okay. A lot of red. These are their offers. The earlier
What do the
visits,
red ones mean?
higher up. They've committed elsewhere. Missed. 2 to Houston. 1 to Iowa State. 2 to Cincy. They're getting cooked on receiver right now. They've got a chance to still salvage this. There are a couple good ones remaining on the board, but it doesn't look great right now.
You know what? To play devil's advocate, you're right. This doesn't look great. But if they went out and got a 4-star kid who's transferring from Texas, I don't know how excited I would get about that either.
Well, Okay, so I know that they've missed. Like very clearly, they did not hit the top of their board yet. There's a guy here, I'm gonna pull it up again. At the bottom of the list, who you just kind of described. Emmanuel Henderson, Alabama. Oh, he went to Bama. That's cool. He does appear to have potential. He hasn't I think he had like 4 catches last year. He had one against Georgia, maybe two. Does that get you excited?
No, I mean, because dude, we've seen Dalen Charlotte transfer to
Right.
Kansas. We've seen Nigel King, the guy from Maryland. Now, granted, it didn't really matter because
I
of who
forgot
was
about him.
throwing to them at the time, which is it's more surprising to me. It's not like I'm upset because again, this transfer portal stuff, like in football
Yee,
specifically, in football specifically, like I don't know how any of these guys are going to translate. There could be
for
a kid
sure.
from Albany who comes in and kills it. Like it's just kind of the way it goes. So it's not that it upsets me or that I'm not worried. It's just that it's surprising. That's my takeaway. It's surprising that KU's not able to get attention. But then again, like
So
maybe we are overestimating KU's attractiveness to potential
it's
transfers.
it's a little surprising, and I'd say like I think where KU gets credit, and I already mentioned this, is they've done a good job developing O line talent and they identifying O line talent. Same on the D line really, and I think they've done a good job with the secondary. It seems where they have struggled the entire time they've been here as a staff is where I'm saying they appear to be struggling now, which is that they've missed on some dudes at receiver, and that doesn't like make me feel great. I still think there are some guys on the board who appear to have some experience, some potential, which is like okay, take a flyer on the Bama guy. That makes sense. The Michigan State dude who's on here, Isaiah Johnson, seems really good. And actually, the Columbia Ivy Leaguer transfer, Bryson Canty, I think could be good. Like I would actually be, I don't know, like that's just the chatter. There could be dudes that hit the portal we don't know of yet. They could be working someone quietly. I'm just saying, like, it's the most obvious spot, and they have not connected on it yet, really. They signed one dude. He's from Ball State. He looks decent. He's kind of more like running backy, like screens, explosive plays, sure. But I don't know that he's like a. You're not gonna be able to like have him be your number one target. I don't think. More gadgety.
It's this is
Do you
going to be a
care? Is
very
this too in the weeds?
a little, but more so big picture. This is just going to be a very telling offseason for Lance Leipold. This is the most roster turnover you've had during your time at Kansas, and
Yeah.
like the idea that you were hired at Kansas because you're a program builder, you're a CEO, you know how to oversee these things. You succeeded largely with guys who were here before you were hired. Now, while there's
Right.
still some of those guys here and some of the guys that you've brought in, just because of the sheer volume of players that are leaving, this is going to be a massive offseason. And I think a really good test where we're going to find out, like, oh, is he a program builder? Like, okay, do you bottom out next year or can you stay afloat while you continue developing some of these fresh faces? Like that to me is going to be how I'm going to be entering 2025.
It's it's a tough balance. And like, look, I'm not going to pretend that they've done a pretty good job of identifying talent. It seems, but basically for every position but receiver. So hopefully that comes around and like I think you just nailed it. Like we'll see. You don't need to win a zillion games. This is not what Key fans are going to be expecting. You want to see like hope, progress, develop talent. Jalen Daniels is there, so it makes me be like, no, go all in a little more for this year. But that's just not. They're going to like they keep their head down and do what they think is right, like regardless, no matter what. One other recruiting concern that continues. Live look at defensive coordinator DK McDonald's Twitter, still private.
seriously, a week later,
Oh yeah.
he's locked out.
Still,
He's locked out.
his Instagram is private too. No, I don't think so. There are recruiting concerns out there.
So we gotta
Wow.
get my man some help.
You're getting fact checked.
Okay. Hey, what's the fact checked? From TA Town Hawk. Nick, the last 2 NFL draft picks from KU football were both guys Leipold brought in. Why did I just pronounce his name wrong? The last 2 NFL draft picks from KU football were both guys Leipold brought in with Booker and Cooney. What's I don't get what the point is. Like, I'm talking about roster turnover. No, I'm not even trying to. I'm not even trying to shit on you. Like, I get the point. It's not.
You were trying to discredit the staff, and
no,
I think
I'm saying
you were just saying we're gonna find out. We're gonna learn. That's not discrediting.
Yeah, you're losing over 50% of your starters from last year. Like, it's going to be a brand new team. I want to see what it looks like. It would be reasonable, by the way, just so we're clear ahead of time, it would be reasonable to expect that any program that's not like one of those top 10 football programs would be expected to have a step back next year. That's why I'm not saying what's KU's over under going to be next season? What do you think? 4.5?
It depends if we have any other receivers.
Right, but that's kind of the thing.
4.5, 5.5. Probably.
That's the thing. Is are you going to bottom out next year? Is this going to be a 2-win team, or can you still remain competitive in what we know is going to be a circus Big 12 again?
3 recruiting cycles. Like, you're not asking for the world, but you do want to see signs of developing talent, like over the long haul, right?
Yeah.
And so, hey, I know you want to get out of here, but I'm just candidly curious if you have a take here. I'm trying to figure out what do I do content wise about the DC being private on Twitter and Instagram, and probably the only Power 5 coordinator that's like that. And I'm like, do I tweet about it? I've tried not to because I don't want to be dogging this guy. I don't know what the deal is. Do I mention it in the newsletter, or do we just keep quietly watching here amongst ourselves as an inside joke?
I think we sit on it. I think we sit on it for the rest of the year. If 2025 rolls around and this guy's still private on all his socials, then I think it's worth a larger conversation.
I mean, he's had the job and the portal is open, and I'm just it's weird. It's weird. What do you like?
It is weird.
What will make you feel okay about KU football next year?
I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of baselining. I'm going to feel the exact way I feel right now until September. I don't know. Maybe some fall camp stuff comes out. Somebody's turning heads at practice. That could get me revved up.
They get this Bama receiver and someone else. I'm all the way back in. Dude's got 1 catch against Georgia. That was a nice catch. And I'm like, fuck. Let's Jalen to Henderson. Let's go. We got, the Iowa running back. Highshaw's coming back now. By the way, that's a change of plans. I'm very happy. I can get there. There's some talent. In Lawrence. What is happening in Lawrence? What do we not hit on, man? What do you want to hit?
Okay, one last thing before we get out of here. Suckbag loser of the week. This one was a slam dunk. I've got a great candidate and a great winner and recipient of the Suckbag loser of the week. Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports radio host and the head coach of the Green Bay Phoenix. He is the Suckbag loser of the week for a variety of reasons, starting with getting absolutely owned on Twitter by Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter tweeted out last week that Sacramento State was in discussions with Mike Vick to be their new head football coach. Mike Vick took another job. What was it? Norfolk State, maybe? That doesn't sound right. He took another job, but at the time, Schefter was reporting that Sacramento State is planning to move up to the FBS. They're building a new stadium, and they have over $50 million in NIL. Doug Gottlieb quote tweeted that and said, Jesus, Shefty, edit what agents tell you. 0.0% chance that Sac State has $50 million in NIL. Adam Schefter responded, the Sac-12 leading the school's NIL effort already announced it has reached its initial goal of raising $50 million in NIL funds to strengthen the school's case for an invitation to the Pac-12 or Mountain West. And Jesus, Doug, a 7-game losing streak in last place in the Horizon League, less time on social media, and more time in the gym. And he included a screenshot of the Horizon League standings, which shows Green Bay at the very bottom at 2-10. But that's not it, Mike. That's not it. Because they are now 2-11.
There's more?
Green Bay has now fallen to 2-11 after losing to Division II Michigan Tech. And I'm sure you're thinking, okay, well then that's it. That's the reason. Those are the reasons. Norfolk State. Okay, so I was right about that. Those are the reasons why Doug Gottlieb is the suckbag loser of the week. But yet again, wait, there's more. Because after losing to Michigan Tech, a video started making the rounds on social media of Doug Gottlieb's press conference before the Michigan Tech game when he was asked about scheduling and what types of teams they want to be scheduling. Here is what that sounded like.
Nobody. Part of the reason I want to play better teams is like, it's 2 degrees outside, snowing. Like, I don't really like the idea of nobody you coming in here and like, I always thought like, what do we learn playing a game where we win by 20? But there's a methodology to it. And I'm going to have to adjust moving forward.
Okay, so Doug Gottlieb has since come out on social media and his nationally syndicated radio show and said that the quote was taken out of context. He's never talked shit on any of their opponents or scheduling, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of one of those situations where if that was the worst thing you did that week, then you probably wouldn't be suckbag loser of the week. But that was the rotten cherry on top of the shit Sunday for Doug Gottlieb's week. And there's still one more day left in this week. It's only Thursday. So he could add to this arsenal. My theory is that everybody in the world or everybody in the sports world knows who Adam Schefter is. You know, every single player on the Green Bay roster saw their head coach getting dragged through the Twitter streets by Adam Schefter. I think they fucking
so good.
I think they're done. They were already a bad team. Like they're one of the worst teams in Division I. But can you imagine like the respect that you would lose for your coach to be like, why is our coach on Twitter talking shit to Adam Schefter? Like
no, our
you're
coach
gonna lose
just
respect
went
for a
viral
guy.
for how much we suck.
Like
if
Flory Badunga was at a local restaurant and he saw Bill Self getting a wedgie in the bathroom. You don't think that would change his perception of his head coach?
Times have changed with the salty iguana.
I mean, dude, but that's what happened. Adam Schefter.
I know.
Adam Schefter gave Doug Gottlieb
but it wasn't in the bathroom.
A virtual wedgie. Yeah.
It was
in
on
the
national TV.
for everyone to see. He was also asked after that game. One of the reporters asked the most savage question. They were like, Doug, what do you say to people? And I love when people phrase questions like that when it's really just like, I want to know. He goes, what do you say to people who wonder if you're capable of doing both a national radio show every day and coaching a basketball team, given the time commitment for both of those? I mean, some people would say it looks like you can't handle doing both of those.
It's insane. That phrasing is wild.
Yes. It's so good. And I do wonder, like, I've been thinking about Doug Gottlieb a lot this week because he keeps popping up. Like, he keeps making headlines. And I just kind of wondered, I mean, Green Bay's clearly not in a good spot in terms of their basketball program. Like, this isn't the year of the Phoenix. But how desperate must they have been for a guy who has been begging for a chance to coach basketball? They give him the job, and he's like, yeah, but also I'm going to keep doing my radio show. And they're like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
I mean, yeah, that's a mistake by an AD. That's a public, like, we're gonna fire up the fan base, and then it's like, yeah, you do whatever you want.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to push back on that a little bit. Is Doug Gottlieb, like, this isn't like Kansas hiring Les Miles. Les Miles had a track record. This isn't like Kansas hiring Charlie Weiss. Listen, we are well versed in trying to win the press conference. I'm not sure Doug Gottlieb is the guy that's going to rally your fan base.
Well, who is the AD at think about this. Like, this is not a prestigious job. You're like, think about the type of person that's like doing that job. It's just not like, you could see why they'd get suckered into Doug Gottlieb. They're like, he's on TV. He's on TV. I can sell this for like 1,000 NIL dollars. I don't know. Like, it is bizarre, though. It's going to be really fun to watch. Like, I'm here for the rest of the Doug Gottlieb season. Do you think he's one and done?
And lock in on Green Bay this year, because this may be the only chance we get to see Doug Gottlieb as a Division I basketball coach.
I have got to watch a Green Bay game. We're gonna do like a Discord party and watch a Green Bay game or something. It's just and laugh at fucking Doug Gottlieb. It sounds nice because that dude has been talking shit on Twitter for a long time.
Okay, so we're gonna end on this note. I've told this story. What?
We didn't do the state of. Can we end on something about 2025? You tell the story.
Yeah. Okay, quick anecdote on Doug Gottlieb. He used to come to Lawrence every year to do Bill Self's fantasy camp, which is where a bunch of grown men like pay to get coached by Jay Williams and Doug Gottlieb and like Fran Fraschilla and Dino Gaudio. Like, it's weird. It's weird.
No, it's Seth Greenberg.
So Doug Gottlieb was doing the aforementioned national radio show at the time, and he came to the KLWN studios in Lawrence where I was working to do his show. And our shows were on at the same time. His show ended an hour before mine. So he's walking through the studio, and he was there all day. And I went in and I asked him, I was like, hey, when you get done, can you come on my show for 10 minutes or whatever? And he's like, yeah, sure. So his show ends.
Nice guy.
We wrangled him. He was not excited about doing it. His show, he comes in, he's like, yeah, my ride's going to be here in 10 minutes. So I got 10 minutes. And I was like, cool. This is the Friday after the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes in the first round of the draft. And so everybody was buzzing. And we didn't talk to him about that. But in the commercial break, he's sitting in the studio, leaned back in his chair on his phone, not looking at me. And I think I just said in passing, like, so what do you think about Mahomes? What do you think about the Chiefs drafting Mahomes? And he doesn't look up from his phone. He just says, terrible footwork, bad pick, not going to work. And I was like, oh, okay, well, sorry I brought it up. One of those things. And it's not a story that stuck with me at the time because I was like, I don't know, maybe he's right. He's got a national radio show. Maybe this guy knows ball. Turns out Doug Gottlieb does not know ball in any form or fashion. Doesn't know hoops, doesn't know football, thought Patrick Mahomes was going to suck. Nana boo-boo, suck bag loser of the week.
You got to call you should have called that AD at Green Bay and warned him. That's what you knew.
Well, I don't know. Doug Gottlieb had a take on Twitter like within the last year or two. And I've done this to him a couple times where he'll have a stupid take on Twitter and I'll just quote tweet it and I'll say, remember when you said Patrick Mahomes was going to suck?
Did he say it on the air?
No.
Yeah, I didn't. Oh, if you had the recording of it, it would be all time.
I know. I know.
It would be
It's
all
sad.
time.
Okay, state of Kansas, state of the Jayhawks.
You're the pro. Well, how do we looking forward to 2025? What do we want to know? What do we want to discuss? Do we predict? What do we think will happen for KU hoops and KU football into the next year, or what is the state of the program? Like, what are you feeling?
We've done enough football. I feel like we kind of hit on all the football stuff. So let's just stick to basketball. Outlook for 2025. So I think we can divide this into two parts, both the rest of this season and sort of beyond the future. There's been a lot of talk. I know you've had takes about KU and Bill Self in the transfer portal era. So I guess a lot of those concerns will be answered one way or another based off the next 3 months. But how are you feeling? Are you bullish on 2025?
Yes, because compared to 2024 for sure. I think this team has really good pieces, right? This current team has really good pieces. They are still finding themselves and trying to learn the demands of the coach, and the coach is trying to learn how they're going to respond to certain situations. Those pieces, I'm going to be optimistic about them. I do hope that the way that they play for periods of time, I'm not talking about changing the starting lineup, but like for some stretches here and there, I would like to see that change. That would make me very happy. But I would say I think they have the pieces there to beat anyone in the country, right? They have that talent, the experience, and so that makes me pretty damn optimistic. For next year, or for the start of the next season, you do have Darren Peterson, who appears to be a phenom, right? I think you've got a legit phenom coming in. And they've already got Bryson Tiller, who's joining the team early. So he'll get an extra semester to practice with the team. I don't know if you knew that. If you didn't know that, I'm going to fight you.
No, I knew that.
Derek. Okay, yeah, sure.
But he's not going to play. He's not going to play.
No, he's just going to practice with them. So he'll get a little extra time. Flory should be back. You hope Rylan Griffin is back. AJ Storr technically could be back. I would be pretty damn shocked as of right now if he is back. If he voluntarily opts in, though he may not get great offers elsewhere. Anyways, all the pieces are there. I'm going to be all the way back sucked in on KU. They're going to have the freshman phenom will be high on Flory. Tiller will have gotten some time, and then they're going to have transfer portal money for that point guard spot, and it's going to be fun to follow. I expect them to go get some point guard that gets us all jacked up, and I think that's going to be really fun. Foggy Thoughts is excited because KJ Adams is getting shipped to Turkey. That's what his comment was. That killed me. AJ might see if his girlfriend stays. Well, Bill will also have something to do about that because he's going to be cutting checks. So AJ needs to get it together. But we've seen he's
reviewing. Bill is reviewing the budget for 2025. So decisions may be made before the season ends.
Need a point guard. So I think that'll be really, really fun to go do another portal run. They're going to have everything they need and should have a really good team. They got a shot at an Natty this year. They can beat anyone. So yeah, I'm pretty damn optimistic. Though right now there's a state of agitation that I'm not sure we'll get through this year.
Yeah,
but the pieces are there.
You're a third of the way through the season, and I also think that feeling a little snake bitten with how last year went. You were about at the same spot as you were a season ago, and then the wheels fell off. Right. I do want to say, by the way, when we were going through what was the coolest thing to happen for KU athletics in 2024 on the short list was KU beating Houston on February 3rd. because I was like, oh, this team, okay, they lost a few to open up Big 12 play. They're about to fucking turn it on. They went 5-7 after that game.
I thought you were gonna say. I was certain you were gonna say my Kevin McCullough take, where you were
Bro,
like, I don't like Kevin McCullough. You got attacked on Twitter, and you're like, I didn't. What'd you say? You're like, I don't know if he's
oh,
built
yeah,
for
that was
this.
actually pretty cool. So I was we were on a ski trip. I don't even ski. So I went with some friends to like the mountains and I just like hung out. And we go out, we're day drinking all day. It was the KU Baylor game. He didn't even play. Kevin McCullough didn't even play that day. I'm at dinner. I'm pretty housed. And I don't know what it was. I think it was just, I didn't like Kevin's general disposition most of the time. Like some of the faces he makes. I was just like,
You were picking up on it.
yeah. And I was like, you know what? Fuck him. Like, and you know what? There's just a part of me that wonders sometimes. I'm just like, man, I say some dumb stuff. Like I called the Colorado head coach's son a shit stain. And then the day after, I'm like, why did I do that? Same exact feeling I felt the day after the Kevin McCullough stuff. I'm like opening my phone and I was like, why did I say that? And then, like, I get vindicated in the end. So either I have the ability to speak things into existence, I get very, very lucky, or honestly, Mike, you know what it probably is your boy just knows ball. Your boy just knows ball.
What football win did you call out? Like 2 years ago. KU was playing someone, and you're like, I'm putting them on fraud watch. It was some.
It was
big
Oklahoma
football.
last year.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
Oklahoma last year.
You called the Oklahoma win. I would say this: you should be more free with your takes, but just like refrain from calling people shit stains within them. Kevin McCullough, you didn't do that. You just were like, I'm not sure he's a Kansas basketball player or something like that.
I said Kevin McCullough is not a real KU guy, and true fans know what I mean.
The last part is the best by far.
Because
You're blacked
every
out,
res-
you're just like, I don't know about this guy.
because that was probably my drunkest day of 2024, and that was early in the year, and I had so many people who are like, well, I'm a real KU fan, and I love the way he plays, and I'm like, yeah, you don't get it then. You don't get it. Because if you say, well, like, I love what he brings to the table. He plays so hard and blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, you don't get it. You don't see the full scope of what's going on here. It's not just he plays hard. Like, he's just not a dude.
Yeah, I think being a little closer to the team sometimes it's like, there's a little bit of a never meet your heroes. Like KU's not that bad, but you're not like you don't have to just love a dude and because he plays for KU and like we're good to most guys, but you were catching on to like there was some bullshit happening. In the NIL era, there are going to be some dudes also just like cashing checks. And I think we can watch for that here on Could Be Wrong, where we show it all.
Okay, well then, if we're going to do that, if we're going to talk about the NIL era, we have to end with this. We have to end with K-State. We buried this at the very end of the show. Okay, what is going on? What is going on with Kansas State? So they're 6-4 on the year. They just lost to Drake, and that even though like if you look at their schedule and you look at like what the Vegas spreads have been and their losses, these aren't on paper they're bad. Like, yeah, Kansas State shouldn't lose to Drake. If you look at like Ken Palm, some of the predictive measures, just go off Vegas spreads. K-State's not expected to be like crushing some of these teams because K-State's not a good team. They're
bad.
They're a bad team. So Coleman Hawkins, their prized recruit, how much did they reportedly pay Coleman Hawkins to go to K-State?
I have takes on this. The people claim that it is $2 million.
Okay,
I takes out hearings,
which would be a high price tag. So
that would be ridiculous.
And Coleman Hawkins
KU,
not
by the
playing
way,
well.
could have had him and like walked way away. Same with Doug McDaniel.
Okay, so
It's not.
This is
not $2 million.
This is the post-game press conference after K-State lost to Drake, in which Coleman Hawkins sounds sad, and Jerome Tang sounds mad.
I can't go on my phone without people wishing the worst for me, and wishing not just for me but for our team, and it devastates me. I just went on my phone and saw someone say, "I hope you break your leg." Like that's the kind of stuff that our team has been dealing with all year, and it like just it affects me so much because like I don't wish that upon my worst enemy. And we go out, we practice every day, we play hard, we're doing the best we can. So it's just my message would be it's us versus everybody.
They feel like, well, I've got to try and deliver something now because I'm being paid. And these young guys, they're feeling that pressure, right? And for fans, so-called fans, to like add on top of that, that's a crime, man. That's just terrible. And those aren't real K-State fans. Like they definitely are not our people and with us and what we are about.
Oh, I'm furious.
Okay, I have takes, but if you're furious, then I want to
Real
hear
quick.
what about.
Real quick, when you, Jerome Tang, spend all off season, or your staff, whoever, telling everyone how great your NIL is, you let this $2 million number float around, which I think is tied to like the performance of the team. So like he's not getting $2 million. Like I would be shocked if that was true. I was told it's smoke and mirrors over there, and they were parading around saying how great their NIL was. Jeff Goodman, who happens to have an NIL deal with K-State, is saying, oh, I think K-State's got one of the best NILs. I really like Jeff, but I don't think he should be reporting on that. He is investing in the team. And no school will deny this number. Like when people said Hunter came to KU for $2 million. That wasn't true. It was maybe close to it over 2 years. But no school denies this because they look good, right? No one is going to, the agent looks good. Everyone looks good by inflating these numbers, right? And then the next year, as an agent, you're hoping the numbers are going to keep going up and up. Jerome Tang, I believe, played a role in this belief that K-State fans have that they have spent so much money on this team. And I do think they spent a lot. But I think that they were so braggadocious about this, so did it for show. And you're going to talk about the pressure that's added to the team. You added it. He himself added this pressure to the team and these players in the way that I think that they work the media like really hard. And they are all style and not a ton of substance. He might be a good person. I'm talking about as a basketball coach and the way that they try to flaunt things. That's one take. We can get into Coleman too, but like,
Okay,
I think
so
he did this to his team.
yeah, and I think your take kind of speaks to what I was gonna say, which is that we can do this thing where we talk about how terrible it is that people are saying mean things online about you, and just because you're getting money and now there's pressure and they feel that pressure, and anybody who's like adding more pressure, you're not real fans, blah blah blah. That's fine. And I saw all the tweets this week from people quote tweeting, because that quote from Coleman Hawkins went kind of viral. It was making the rounds, and a lot of people are doing the thing they do where they quote tweet it and say, come on, this is terrible, have some humanity, what's wrong with you people? It's like, congratulations, I'm sure you got like 250 likes on that, you accomplished the goal of like looking like a good person online. We can sit here and talk all night about the way things should be, about how the way that the world should operate, or we can just like have a real conversation about how it actually
What
is.
it is.
And how it is, I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry that K-State fans are saying terrible things to you online. Do you think KU fans haven't had the same thing happen to, or KU students and athletes haven't had the same thing happen to them every year, way before the NIL era began? Like, do you want to be a part of this or not? Do you want to be a part of like big boy college athletics, or do you want to go back to just being K-State irrelevant Power 5 program? This is how it works. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if we want to talk about cyberbullying, we can do that. But like, for my head coach, I want my head coach sitting there and telling my players, oh, people are being mad online. then put your fucking phone down. Like, I don't care. I don't care. Like, it's so,
There
this
is a
is such like
solution.
small time program type shit to be like sitting there after a loss saying like, yeah, people need to be nicer.
No, there's a solution to delete or like turn your phone off. And like also the reality of it, like I've had a K-State dude be like, "You're on my list of people to kill." Like, I'm like, "All right, like you're some fucking loser online." Like it me, I get it. No, like I'm sure it's bad, but like Coleman Hawkins talks a lot of shit on Twitter too. I think
Does
he
he?
likes to like I think he likes to be chirpy, especially with like KU, which is fun. Like that's part of the rivalry. But I'm pretty sure he wanted to go. He was interested in KU, and KU was like, no. And like another thing, like K State built a bad roster, and I was talking to people this offseason. They're like, they're fucking up. They went after some big point guard or some big guard basically, and didn't get him, and like didn't have a backup plan because they thought they were going to get some dude who ended up at like some blue blood. Like they in the this is why I think there should be some like honest reporting here when it comes to like getting new players. These fans were told that they had a great roster, and you kind of start talking to some people behind the scenes that are like, no, like like that roster makes no sense. There are problems up and down, and they're telling everyone how much money they spent, and that has been repeated. Their fans got bullshitted bad this offseason. And like KU had a disappointing season in football, different reasons, right? Like it wasn't we had this great roster that wasn't there. So I just am like, yeah, they got misled over there. And I think this staff that is always very loud helped create this shitstorm that they're now in.
Well, yeah, it's like you want to be treated as a serious major program when it suits you, but then like when things aren't going according to plan, you want to play like the hey, everybody be nice now. We're
No,
trying.
100%. No, they're so in your face. And when KU lost to Mizzou, and the Mizzou coach Dennis Gates, Nick, you didn't watch this. I don't know if you saw this. Did you see what Dennis Gates did at the end of the game? Because you were in Canada. He called the timeout in the last 5 seconds, and it seemed like he was rubbing it in. And he stopped and told Bill to get your team off the court. We're about to storm. Bill went and shook his hand, and he was going, go, go. I mean, it really was pretty damn classy. Because there was a huge, like, they were, like, piling on. He gave KU time to get their players out of a situation that always feels like a little slimy. And after the game, Bill, not slimy, like, it's fun, whatever, but it's sketch, right? It's better for everyone in that case. Bill, after the game, was like, that was a great court storm. We've seen some that might have been the best one. And I was pissed when he said that. But I think he was just saying thank you to Dennis Gates. And Gates, after the game, said it. I hope to be a Hall of Famer, and I hope someone would treat me the same way. That's what you do for Hall of Famers, basically. That is the opposite of what happens at Kansas State. And I just think that they're very it feels phony to me. It's felt phony the whole time. That's what I'm getting to. And that includes the NIL numbers. That's not a hot take, huh?
Speaking of the court storming, like you remember Jerome
Right.
Tang standing up there and telling everybody like, we from now on we expect to win. It's like you told him. You told him.
And the showy nature of like don't storm, and then the flyby, and they like clearly had this video. I wish I've seen. I gotta see if I can. I gotta see if I can like. I got the flyby footage.
You were so
I know it exists.
all about the flyby for like 3
I was
weeks.
being lied to. I was being gaslit. All these people.
Wait, was it flyby or blowby? You kept.
I think it was flyby. Was it flyby? Yeah. So like, it's fine. But like, I don't know. It's just kind of like be careful what you wish for, and like K-State fans are mad online, but like this is the end. Like, is it a K-State fan? People say crazy shit online. It sucks. But like you
Yeah.
set
How
yourself.
do we know the guy didn't just say like, "Hey, break a leg"?
I don't know. I saw. I just searched for it. Like, was it real? And Derek Young was like, "Here's the guy who did it." He posted his picture. Thanks, Derek. Thanks. That's really, really good. You're really being constructive here at repairing a damaged situation in which a player is very upset, and now you're gonna have like a mob going after this guy, and these maniacs got students to protest the president's house last year or whatever. Like, what the fuck is going on at K-State? What a shit show. Just call it what it is. It's a shit
Yeah.
show. I don't blame their fans. They're believing what they've been told. Not for this break your leg thing. I'm saying for this like anger that's coming out of nowhere. They're, like,
That should
so
be your next
disappointed.
book. Your next book should be on the Jerome Tang blow by.
I wrote another one. Have you seen my second book
Is it the one you sent me about Ohio
about
State?
Ryan Day? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's live.
Oh, it is. Okay. All right. I'm gonna
right,
check
so-
that out now. No
book is
sell.
live. The
Yeah,
book is
there's
live.
there's
I'm
nothing else.
optimistic. Are you optimistic? You didn't say
Yeah, I am. But we're gonna wrap the show up now. It's been a pleasure. I'm not letting you drag me into another 25-minute conversation. So
You just
thank
had
you.
me rant.
Thank you to everybody watching. Shout out Derek Young. Shout out Doug Gottlieb. Shout out Deion Sanders Jr. You can check out the audio version wherever you get your podcast. That'll be up within the next 12 hours or so. So if you're listening to this, you're already downloaded it. So why am I even including this in the outro? Let's get the hell out of here.
Some K-State fan is going to clip this, and I'm going to get attacked now.
Hey,
So,
Merry Christmas and
great.
Happy Hanukkah. All right? Am I right?
Shout out my people.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Happy holidays, everyone.
We'll see you
Happy
next year.
holidays.
Oh, you see what I did? See you next year.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.